Okay, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Equal Arts film. We thought it was a really interesting approach, looking at that holistic approach that we wanted to share with you. Continuing the theme of the film, our next two presenters will reflect on ways that the co-creation of theatre can support older people to take centre stage in the reimagining of ideas about care, connection and community. David Slater, who is the founding director of Enteliki Arts and remains an associate of the company, and Naoki Sugawara of Oibokashi has developed ageing and theatre workshops and uses theatrical techniques to provide care for those living with dementia across Japan's super ageing society. Today, with the help of Izumi Sugawara, they're going to tell us about their walkabout performance reflecting on living with dementia, developed by older residents working alongside healthcare professionals, police and shopkeepers that form part of the nationally significant high-profile Coventry City of Culture programme in summer 2021. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, so like I say, do ask questions in the chat, but I'm delighted now to hand over to David and Naoki-san and Izumi to tell you more about this wonderful project, which I was privileged to see last year.
Thank you, Virginia. I'm just trying to get my screen to work. Yes, I'm David Slater, and I'm an associate of Enteliki Arts, who are based in Lewisham, southeast London. Enteliki works with people who often feel unrepresentative, and the work navigates the boundaries between art, creativity, care, well-being, and community. And for the last 30 years, the company has been pioneering ways of working with the creative voices, skills and experiences of older people living in southeast London. The story of Theatre of Wandering begins in 2018 when I was working in Tokyo on a production of Enteliki's street performance Bed with older Japanese artists. The production is basically a way of sharing stories of isolated older people by people in streets stumbling upon abandoned elders in beds. And this work formed part of a international Here's Rosie in performance in Bed in southeast London. Bed in Tokyo was part of an international theatre conference performance festival. And whilst I was there, I had the privilege of seeing the performance of Theatre of Wandering, which was made by a Japanese company called Abokishi. I joined the audience for this performance in the streets of a district called Urawa. And as an audience member, with others, we wandered around following the story of an older man who was searching for his wife, who's living with dementia. It was a Saturday afternoon, and as we wandered through the narrow streets, we paused on street corners, in parks, to witness this unfolding of the story, of the narrative. The fictional story of this older man searching for his wife was woven into all of the real life stories that were happening in that part of town on that Saturday afternoon. So there was this real blurring of fiction and reality. You couldn't work out, is that part of the play? Is that not part of the play? As an audience, you were really on the edge, working with all parts of your attention. Well, 2 years later, Entelke was invited, as Virginia has said, by Coventry 2021 to make a new theatre production for the UK City of Culture. And of course, it was obvious what we should do. We should recreate a new version of Theatre of Wandering with the people of Coventry, led by its older citizens. So very nervously, I contacted Naoki-san Sugawara, director of the company who created the work, Obokishi, to see if he would be interested in a collaboration. Let me introduce you to Naoki-san.
直樹さん、よろしくお願いします。はい、OK です。
いいですかね。
はい、大丈夫です。はい、お願いします。
すいません。ちょっとはい、すいません。ちょっと電波が悪くて、はい、すいません。
Sorry, slightly weak internet there. OK、はい、どうぞ。
追いぼっけしの菅原です。よろしくお願いします。追いぼっけしっていう劇団の名称は日本語の老いる、ボケる、死ぬから取っています。名前の通り、老いや介護を題材にした演劇活動をしています。追いぼっけしっていうのは、
Sorry, I think internet is a little bit dodgy there. Oh dear.
How do you want to proceed?
Shall I proceed? Shall I just do just a little bit?
Naoki-san might be back now, I think so.
Okay. 直樹さんどうですか？大丈夫ですか？
すいません。大丈夫？聞こえますか？
はい、どうぞ続けてください。
はい。よろしいですかね。
はい、どうぞ。はい、聞こえます。
はい。で、追いぼっけしっていうのは、はい。
I'm just wondering whether I should say a little bit about the work of.
I can just translate as far as we got here. So I'll just do that.
泉さん、ちょっと。
ここまでちょっと訳しますね。はい。Okay,
はい、
sorry.
はい、
we'll just do a little bit here, the bit he's already said. So, my name is Naoki Sugawara from Oibokeshi. Nice to meet you all. The name of the theater company, Oibokeshi, comes from the Japanese words oi, which means aging. Bokeru is to grow senile, and shinu to die. So, as the name suggests, our performance is themed around aging and caring. When we talk about aging, growing senile, and death in Japan, we associate these words with negative images such as sad, heavy, and painful. If I can help it, I'd rather not age or grow senile. If I can help it, I'd rather not die. 直樹さん、どうでしょうか？ケアラーとして働いたところから続けていただけますか？
He may have tried it already, but perhaps if Naoki just tries leaving and returning, that might help. Or just keeping perhaps keeping the camera off can sometimes help. I have seen him kind of pop out and in, so I think you might be trying that, but it might just be an internet thing.
Okay.
Hopefully get stronger shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps, Dave, if you have some information, perhaps we can go to that in the meantime.
Do you want to carry on?
Okay. As much as anybody want to hear Japanese version or English version?
Do you want to carry on with the English version?
Okay. So Naoki-san worked as a carer at an elderly care home. So while interacting with many elderly people, I came to realize that there are important things that we can gain from aging and death. So we can actually get motivated to live better because of that. So in other words, instead of turning our back on these realities, we might be able to feel more positive by facing them. So through theatre activities, I'm hoping to convey the flourishing world of aging, which I saw while working at the care home. So I'd like to give a helping hand in creating a culture where communities can integrate oi, boke, shi, rather than segregating them. As for activities, I hold workshops to discuss our relationship with people with dementia and give theatre performances, which we create with elderly people and carers. So I have done my first theatre of wandering 8 years ago in Okayama, Japan. And the story was created from the real experience of a member of Oibokeshi, Mr. Okada. So, Naoki-san, Okadaさんの話から続けていただいていいですか？
すみません。はい、
はい、大丈夫です。はい、OK です。
はい、岡田さんとの、俳諧演劇の初演は、8年前に岡山で行いました。で、おいぼっけしのメンバーである当時88歳の岡田さんの実体験をもとに作りました。で、岡田さんっていうのは、認知症の奥さんを介護していて、いわゆる徘徊の問題で悩んでいました。で、奥さんは、岡田さんにですね、今日で退職しますと言って、家にいながら家に帰ろうとするんですね。そこで、私たちは徘徊に困っている岡田さんと一緒に演劇を作りました。徘徊とは何かということを考えることができたらと思ったんですね。で、実際の商店街で、お芝居を上演しました。で、主人公はですね、久しぶりにふるさとに戻ってきた男で、電車を降りて駅の広場に行くと、偶然、知人の高齢男性と、で、妻がいなくなってしまったんだ、探してるんだということで、男はですね、高齢男性と一緒に商店街を探しに行くっていうストーリーですね。で、舞台は商店街で、俳優は商店街の方々です。はい。自分の店で自分の役を演じてもらいました。で、観客はですね、この作品を鑑賞していると、何が現実で何がフィクションなのかっていうのは、その境界がですね、曖昧になってくるんですね。それが、今回の俳諧演劇の大きな仕掛けになったんではないかなと思います。もしかしたら、この感覚は認知症の方が見ている世界に共通することなんではないかということですね。はい。で、そういうことで、観客はですね、認知症の奥さんを探すっていう介護者の思いと、街を一人でさまよう認知症の高齢者の思いっていうのを自分ごとのように感じてもらえたんではないかなと思っています。
はい、OK. So 80 years ago, when I started doing the first theatre of wandering in Okayama, Japan, I was creating this story with Mr. Okada, who was then 88 years old. And Mr. Okada was caring for his wife who had dementia, and he was troubled by her wandering problem. His wife would say to him, "I'm leaving my job today," and she would try to go home while being at home. So we hope to create a theatre play with Mr. Okada and create an opportunity to think about what exactly wandering is about. So because the topic is wandering, we performed it in a real shopping street. The audience would walk around the town with the performers. The main character is a man who returns to his hometown after being away for a long time. After getting off the train and arriving at the square of the station, he bumps into an acquaintance, an elderly man. This elderly man says that his wife has gone missing and he's looking for her. So they go together to the shopping street to find her. The theatre stage is the shopping street, and the performers are people who are working at the shopping street, performing what they normally do. So for the audience, the boundaries between reality and fiction became blurred. Everyone on the street starts to look like actors, and the sound of the street becomes background music. And they start to lose track of what is dream and what is real. So maybe this sensation is similar to the world which people with dementia are seeing. And this became the big trick of Theatre of Wandering. And I believe that through this performance, the audience could experience the feeling of the carer who is looking for his wife with dementia, and also the feeling of the elderly person with dementia who's wandering around town just on her own. Okay.
So, how could we take the story that Naoki-san has just described and find its reflection on the streets of Coventry, 5,000 miles away? We began with a series of meetings, workshops, chance conversations, and days of wandering across many spaces and places in the city. We gathered together a loose confederation of local artists, health workers, producers, care workers, older performers from Coventry's Belgrade Theatre, older people soon to become performers from independent living schemes, people living with dementia, their carers, local shopkeepers, community workers, police personnel, and many others. Everyone that we spoke to in this initial process of creating the work intuitively understood the need to uncover and share this story. 1 in 3 people in our communities is living with dementia. The story touches almost everyone's lives. Many who we met wanted to be a part of the process, and the core creative team rapidly expanded into a much broader devising and performing company. People new to theatre making walked into our devising and rehearsal sessions with the authority of their own lived experiences. New company members introduced new characters to the story. New characters brought new knowledge. New knowledge brought new consequences. So in this slide, Ella, who is in real life police and community support officer from West Midlands Police, is in rehearsal with the older character who is looking for his wife, George. Now, when we were talking as a creative team, we thought that Ella would come into this scene and then she'd leave and disappear from the rest of the story. She wouldn't leave, said Ella in rehearsal. She has a duty of care. And so this is one small instance of how at every moment in devising, the story was shaped by the experience of the company from the city who were involved in co-creating it with us. Place and time became key factors in the designing of an inclusive process. The rehearsals, the devising sessions had to be flexible to take into consideration people's hospital visits, work shifts, availability of carers, people's individual stamina. We worked across a mix of devising and rehearsal spaces so that the performance was literally being created on in people's home ground. We worked in people's front rooms, a church hall, a police station, GP surgery, on the market, on the street. In Theatre of Wandering, we aspired to make meaningful work, forged from the imaginations and life experiences of older Coventry citizens, working with many others from their city. The recognition that everyone has something of significance to contribute to the shape, form, and content of the work was key to the creation of a theatre that questioned and explored ideas about care and the city. Narratives about dementia force us to explore ways of comfortably living with difference, change, and uncertainty. Everyone in the company had distinctive and unique perspectives to contribute, ranging from people with lived experience of dementia to clinical psychologists from local memory teams. The interdependent structures that were forged within the company created safe and caring spaces to explore and share difficult stories and experiences. As a creative team, we learned so much. Naki-san.
これまで、日本の岡山、埼玉で俳諧演劇を上演してきました。で、コペントリー版は俳諧演劇のポテンシャルを最大限発揮できた作品だったんじゃないかなと思います。ここまで演劇が街に浸透していって、で、街に演劇が浸透していく作品はありませんでした。これだけ多くのさまざまな属性の人々が参加し、その人々の経験や視点が物語に反映されていく。日本版とコメントリー版では、作品の形式は同じなんですけれども、そこに至るまでの手法っていうのは、異なっていたんですね。デイビッドさんの、徹底して、街とともに物語を作り出していく姿勢に私は感銘を受けました。俳諧演劇の登場人物に認知症とともに生きるアニーという登場人物がいます。出演者は、最初はですね、認知症をどのように表現するのかっていうことばかりに意識がいってしまって、リハーサル中にですね、参加している精神科医の助言を聞きながら、繰り返し稽古をしていくうちに、徐々にアニーという一人の人間を演じ始めていくんですね。この演劇のリハーサルにおける役作り、これは役作りなんですけれども、まさに認知症の人を理解していく過程だったように思います。このようにリハーサルが街の人々にとって超高齢社会を生きる上で情報を共有したり、認識を変えたり、行動を起こしたりする、そういう場になっていたのではないかなと、とても興味深く感じています。俳諧演劇は体験した観客が何が現実で何が虚構なのかっていうのは分からなくなっていくんですね。で、これは作り手である私たちも同様に分からなくなっていきます。行方不明になった認知症の妻を探しに行く高齢男性の物語は、さまざまな出会いがあって、衝突、対話などを経て、妻を見つけ出し、最後にはですね、心温まるラストシーンを迎えます。私たちがその公演を終えたときにですね、それは虚構の出来事とは思えませんでした。さまざまな属性の人々が集まり、街の中でその物語を生み出し、完成させた。で、それは実際に起こったことなんですよね。演劇が終わった後も、その物語は街の人の中で生き続けていくんじゃないかなと思いました。そういう意味で、コメントリー版は私に、超高齢化社会におけるアートの可能性っていうのを改めて感じさせてくれました。
Okay. So I have been creating Theatre of Wandering in Okayama and Saitama in Japan, but I feel that the Coventry version is a production that has demonstrated the full potential of Theatre of Wandering. There has not been a production where the performance permeates the city in such an extent. So many people from so many different backgrounds have participated, and their experience and the perspectives are reflected in the story. The format of the Japanese version and the Coventry version is the same, but the creative process was different. I was really impressed by David's thorough approach to create the story with the city. In the Coventry version, there is a character called Annie who lives with dementia. Now, at first, performers were more concerned about how to express that she has dementia. However, as they listened to the advice from the psychiatrists who attended the rehearsals, they started to play the role of Annie as a person. And while this was a rehearsal, I felt that it was a process of understanding a person with dementia. I found it very interesting that the rehearsal became a place for people in the city to share information, changing their perceptions and taking actions in a super age society. The audience of Theatre of Wandering experienced the blurred boundary between the reality and dream. But we, the creators, also became equally confused. The story of the elderly man who goes in search of his missing wife with dementia, meets, clashes, has conversation with various people in the community, and has a heartwarming ending. So when we finished the performance, it did not feel like it was a fictional event. People in the city came together to create and complete the story. And it was actually a real life event. So the story may live on in the city and in the people of the city, even after the performance is over. The Coventry version showed me the possibility of art in an aging society.
And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coping with the difficulties that you had in speaking to us from Japan. Really grateful for your patience and ingenuity in sorting that out. That was a brilliant presentation, and the chat is just full of great comments about how everyone wants to do this in their city now. Shall I pause Izumi to allow you to translate?
Okay. 今日ちょっとテクニカルなことで問題あったけど、大丈夫でしたね。我慢してくれてどうもありがとうございました。そして今このチャットの中にもあるように、いろいろな違う場所でこのプロジェクトやったらどうだというふうに、みんなコメントしているみたいです。
I think the artistic depth of this piece of work is so remarkable. And I wondered if you did encounter any challenges working during the pandemic to produce this piece, and how you overcame them and what you learned.
このパンデミックによってその働き方とか変わったところ、何か問題があったりとか、そういうのがあったでしょうか。そして何か学んだことみたいなことありますかね。
Naokiさん、
ミュートになってます。はい、お願いします。
はい、すいません。ちょっと今、発表終わった途端にまた電波が悪くなってみたいです。すいません。私はあまりにも緊張しているからか、インターネットも不安定になっています。はい、パンデミックによって、クリエーションの前半で現地に訪れることができない、オンラインミーティングを繰り返しました。で、コベントリーの街をツアーしたり、現地の人々のインタビューしました。で、作品の形式やストーリーを構想する作業はもう、僕は海外のアーティストとは行うの初めてで不安もあったんですけども、オンラインでもある程度のことは構想を固めることができたんですね。なので、現地に行けなかったっていうのは残念だったんですけども、オンラインである程度のことは可能であり、海外との距離も、今日もそうですけど、一気に近づいたように感じました。
Yes, sorry about the signal. It seemed to be the signal is worrying like I am. Anyway, so this pandemic problem, I was unable to come to the UK for the first half of the creative process, but we had many online meetings instead. And during that time, I had online tours of Coventry and interviewed local people. And because it was the first time for me to create and decide the format of the performance with artists from a foreign country, I was slightly worried. But we were able to consolidate our concepts online to some extent. So I felt that the distance between me and the rest of the world had come a bit closer. Although it was still a shame that I couldn't be there for the whole of the creative process.
David, do you have anything to add in terms of how you managed?
Not at all. No, nothing to add at all. I just remember a very surreal morning where we were literally live streaming, wandering around the streets and popping in and out of shops and introducing Naoki-san to shopkeepers and people we met by chance on the street. And it just seemed that anything was possible with the magic of technology.
That's brilliant. We've got a question from Sharon Bailey asking, have you carried, oh, sorry, my chat's just jumped as I was trying to read it. Have you carried on with this kind of work Or was the scale of this activity only possible because of the capital of culture investment? So is this a core part of the work that you do, this theme of putting the subject of aging and dementia and challenging people's expectations at the heart of your work? Or was it for you a one-off because it was something that was funded by Capital of Culture?
Definitely not a one-off. And in fact, as we speak, Enteleki is working on a production with their eldest performance company, Glorious Age, on a production called Moving Day. And Moving Day is a story that has been created by Enteleki's Glorious Age company, which is looking at the moment where somebody in their 70s has to move home. They're not able, perhaps because of health reasons, of staying where they are, and also in their story that they're literally being evicted from their home. So the company are working with local housing teams and social care and health teams from Lewisham to recreate, to discover this story. And it's going to be performed later this year in September as part of Lewisham Borough of Culture. Of course, working with a city of culture just opened up so many doors, and it became very easy to work with health teams, police teams, as well as many local elders. But this way of working, I think, is so thrilling that it can't be a one-off.
That's great, David. Thank you. I don't know if Naoki's got anything to add, Izumi, in terms of what perhaps his next project might be.
今回コベントリーでこのように、ちょっと動いてますかね? I don't know if Naoki-san is slightly frozen there, sorry.
Right.
But as far as we know, the Naoki-san's work is carrying on like something that he learned from Coventry, City of Coventry experience. He is working on the new initiatives in Japan and stuff like that. So it definitely won't be a one-off, and it will be something he will carry on.
That's great. David?
And this project, just to say, this project, Moving Day, is something that we are still working together with Naki-san, because in parallel in Japan, Naki-san is working with a company, an older performing company of elders who are creating their own version of Moving Day. And then there's an exchange between older artists in Japan, older artists in UK. So it's the story develops and continues.
That's great. That's wonderful. We've got 1 minute left. I don't know if Naoki's got anything else he wants to add quickly.
直樹さん、ちょっと時間がそろそろなくなってしまうんですけど、そうですね、何か最後にまとめて言いたいことというか、一番大切なポイントなのがあれば、どうぞ、今回のスピーチの中でもいいですけど、ありますか？
はい、コベントリーで作った作品を経て、今、私は日本でまた新たな取り組みを始めてます。こういうふうに、コベントリーでやって、でそこで得たものを日本で、実践して、今は認知症の人とか、障害のある人、介護職とか、さまざまな属性の方と一緒に芝居を作っています。でそこでまた、得たものをですね、また、こういった場で、デイビッドさんと共有。
Okay. So yeah, after doing the creative experience in Coventry, I am now working with in my town with people with different attributes, like people with dementia, with disabilities, carers, health workers, and civil servants, just like what we did in Coventry, just like how David created this in Coventry. And yes, we are starting a new initiative in Japan, and I'm really happy to be able to share this with everybody. And hopefully we can report these practices to everyone around the world and exchange ideas again in the future.
Brilliant. Well, we're out of time, so I'd just like to say a big thank you to our friends from Japan who've been with us today, Naoki and Izumi. It's been a privilege to have you speaking to us from Japan, and also to David for the wonderful story about the project. And so lovely to hear that you're still both working together on the next iteration. Thank you so much.